Welcome to Following Spirit Without Hesitation, Stories from Journeys of Deepening Trust. I'm Tanya, and today I have with me Lauren Lochrie. Have I got that right, Lauren?
Yeah, yeah. Lochrie, yeah, perfect.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Mm.
So I met Lauren just about was it 18 months, about 18 months ago at the
Yep,
first Wild Roots gathering, um, which was on the estate. We both live in Scotland, so it's on the Scottish estate where you live, as you were part of the facilitating team for that. And as I mean, everybody there has a connection to the land and to the earth in their own way. But you're a fellow forager, and though my focus is more on mushrooms, yours is more on the plants and the trees and the I guess the leaves and the fruit. So yeah, is there anything else you would like to add to that brief?
uh, yeah, I guess Deep Roots Gathering, I believe. I don't know
Yeah.
if you said wild, but it is wild as well, so I like that, just to correct the name. But what to add? No, we yeah, no, I saw you, the quiet one in the circle, but with these deep eyes of, these beautiful like shining eyes, and I was like, oh, I need to get to know this one. And I knew we would just sort of yeah, I'm glad we've connected since. And to see what you're up to now is really encouraging. But I on the land here, doing a bit of, land stewarding, if you like. I love to, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of questions, but
No, you're
yeah, I've been
fine.
here for, what, over 5 years now. um yeah, I feel lucky to be on such a gorgeous estate, but I don't need the ticket that says it's mine. The landowner can deal with all the admin there. We both walk this land, and hopefully connecting as we do, as I do. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'm kind of on a tangent there, but um, yeah, we met, and what yeah, you've covered. I'm a foraging tutor. Um, and that, yeah, that can be, just connecting people, slowing people down and tuning in. But I can also help folk with homesteading activities. So that might be around food growing or making kind of products that incorporate herbs, or we might make a deodorant or something as well, a natural moisturizer. So there's a wee bit of crafting and potion making as well, like maybe some herbal remedies, hedgerow recipes, that kind of a thing, really, at the minute. Yeah,
Yeah, so building those bridges of connection to earth.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
and also ourselves, to explore then the nature of ourselves and what that might mean. Because we often see ourselves separate from nature.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So my next question is what I ask everybody, and that's what does we all have a different experience of what following spirit means. And what's been interesting is the amount of my guests who've said connection to nature, right,
Ah,
is a big part of that. But what's your experience of following spirit and your unfolding process with that?
yeah.
Um,
Um, I guess it's probably times of when something's stirring often, and anyway, for me to recognize, it was often something stirring in me. It could be a kind of crisis point. It could be only after these kind of experiences of like listening to my heart and my gut, something's not right, and or something needs to change, or I need to move, or I need to my personal journey with it has sometimes been quite dramatic, ups and downs of these difficulties, that kind of points whereby the more I was, if I'm honest, I've always felt kind of drawn to, like, nature, and even like the cosmos, and this kind of romantic heart of mine was always looking kind of for God transcendent, if you like, spirit transcend, out there, outside yourself. And every time I've been put on my arse, excuse the language, right back down to sort of get in the soil, slow, less words, less, overtly obvious things to sort of do, and just get on the ground, and breathe and slow down. I've been, put back into to reflect on that, and therefore I realized, I remember asking at one point, um just with this kind of, I really felt this kind of feminine revival as well, just because of what we've come through over, thousands and thousands of years. I thought, where are these sovereign women? Where are the women? And so I thought, I have to become her. And so therefore I realized, in connecting with spirit, it's always been there. It was
Yeah.
more God immanent, or spirit immanent, rather than outside myself. And oftentimes, if I'm honest, it's took a bit of a bump in the head to sort of realize that at times. But so yeah, just more kind of slowing down, and yeah, listening to that embodied intelligence that's right here and
Mm.
always was. If that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
that's a huge part of the journey, isn't it? Is that searching, right? Thinking that
Oh,
something's outside of us and finding
yeah.
out.
And
Um,
that's been useful as well. But these takes you places and experience. You get these experiences, I guess. But the whole time it's like, that kind of aha. Yeah.
yeah. So, have you any stories around that,
Yeah.
around your journey and that following spirit?
Yeah, yeah. To reflect on what it is that I'm lucky enough and busy with at the minute through my work and life. I guess a good starting point was when I moved out here. I'm originally from a wee place called Clydebank. So I ran away for the towns and the cities and the madness. But anyway, so when I arrived here, there are some ancient trees. And
Mm,
I'm a bit of a tree geek, right? And I like to know the name of this and that, and that's good and well. But there was one tree when I first arrived to this place where I stayed initially, and I was stood like a wain, like a child, with my head kind of like, arms kind of long and head up. And I thought to myself, and I didn't know the species or the name of this tree. I could guess what family it might be in. And it was massive, and the bark was so intricate and knobbled, and the branches were it just stood there in this great sort of a statural gorgeousness, how to say. And anyway, myself at the time, I just thought, you know, what does one say to such a being?
mm,
Yeah, as I stood there and had met in a sort of the most honest meeting I've ever had with anything of the wild, of nature, that was non-human. It was that space of, before I had named it and labeled it, I felt like there was this pause, and as clear as day, resounding through me, I heard, "May your roots be strong and your life be long." So that was the answer to my, what do you say to this tree, this massive being? Like, what do this awesome
yeah.
being? May your roots be strong and your life be long. And I trembled and was like, whoa. And I said, may your roots be strong and your life be long. And so that since then has been my little prayer to, like, planting trees, working with different plants or shrubs, and sort of greeting the tree folk, since it's what I like to say. So that kind of started. Oh, there's something to this. Taking a moment, and with appreciation, with a space of gratitude and openness, only then will you really
Mm,
start to maybe hear and see more of what is already there. Before Mrs. Oh, I've studied this and I know that, and you want to label it. Well, watch out, you might miss a few things. That for me was a real, okay. That started a lot of my work with what I do now, I guess. I'd say. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I got chills as you were saying that, and I could almost feel the presence of that tree coming to join us in that moment
Yeah,
as well.
beautiful.
That's yeah, and I think as well it shows the simplicity,
Yeah,
and I think if something simple it is divine, that, like you say, the other realm beings,
yeah,
non-human beings, these connections that we can have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
And it,
beautiful.
yeah, it's funny. Since then, it kind of steered my I looked, I was out walking my dog. I'd had we can talk about that another time, a kind of accident, I kind of, so I was off work and I had the time to walk. And so I hadn't seen the trees like I had before. And I felt they had really healed me on this really fundamental level, to then, and sure enough, in time, I had been dreaming of like Rowan came to me at like 20 past 2 in the morning and I had this message from Rowan, and then that became this sort of a tree course that I did across the seasons.
Mm,
Yeah, so that eventually became sacred tree crafting across the seasons. I think I started calling it initially like, oh, don't skip the woo part. I was like, oh, tree medicine across the seasons. People won't take me seriously, and then I thought, forget that. Eventually calling it sacred tree crafting. And working alongside some excellent other facilitators through the seasons and the four trees, it's sounded out those kind of changes in the wheel of the year, the rhythm of the year. So I think from that moment that tree sort of stood me in good stead, and then I felt really connected since then, or more than I hadn't noticed it as much on that level before, or felt as much. So
mm.
that, yeah, it's funny what popped out after, in a way in relation to my work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were just saying about the word. Sometimes, like I do the same, to try to tone down the words to make it more palatable, shall I say, to people. And then I realized, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
If I'm being told this is what I call it, this is what I need to call it, and it's like, okay, just go with it. And of course, the
Yeah.
wisdom of that is, I realize afterwards, once I've dealt with my stuff,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
wisdom of that is obviously greater
Yeah.
than my
It's like
own.
with respect to our dear selves, like get that out of the way already. Like, come on, that's not. Don't get distracted by that nonsense. Like, hello, there's work to be done. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm still with that, that
Yeah.
pause, right? The pause of just
Mm,
being and experiencing and not naming or not saying, oh well, this is what this does. And I'm also thinking about my own foraging, with the mushrooms um
yeah, I was
and
wondering if
and
you touched
how
on that.
how that, so I've got a lot going floating on in my
Mm,
my head at the moment.
mm,
But how
yeah.
has that pause as well? Do you want to speak a little bit more around that pause of having that more experiential relationship?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Lovely. That ties in beautifully with what I was feeling into myself. Um, I mean, maybe we look at it from the other side, like, and it's not an unuseful thing to have or to a place to come from, but people often will want the answers. You're the guide and tell me all the things and give me the answer. And what does it do? And can I eat it? And that's fine. That's a great inroads. But and it's almost like when you say the answer, it's a kind of a tick. And then right next, it's almost like we want to take in all this information to then regurgitate it, but we've not had that experience of getting to know. And so I end up telling folk, I'm taking you on a speed dating kind of a day with plants here and fungi, and essentially my point is that you're only seeing those plants and wild things in a particular point in time, or through that season, and it looked different 2 weeks ago, a day ago even, and it will do as we continue. And how does that change? So it's up to them to go on more dates, and I'm like, feel it up, have a taste, have a wee feel, have a smell, have a and build that relationship. And I talk about I guess it's trying to, well, first of all, rather, before we talk about that, like, you know, I'll say, like, well, don't take my word for things as well, because we're all so biased in our own sort of a uniqueness. It's kind of beautiful, actually, our own, beautiful bias of our own set, our own perceptions we're limited by that, right? So I'll say to folk, well, okay, that's a rowan tree, but how yeah, it's a rowan tree. Well done, but how do you know that? And so to pull out of them, they might have to have a wee think about it. Well, and what comes up, but it just is. And I'm like, aye, but what is it you're tuning into? How have you developed relationship? How do you know this tree? And I said that there's no wrong answer. And I'm thinking of this one time, the woman said, well, it tends to have this kind of a khaki army trousers, like army print on it on the trunk there, and I'd never seen this. And I'm going, so it does the
Wow.
licheny beings are kind of black, orange, and sometimes kind of like a kind of greeny, pastel colour. And I thought, oh, so I've never saw it that way. So all I
Mm,
could see was khaki army trousers, and someone else was saying, oh, it tends to be multi-stemmed, and I thought hazel was always multi-stemmed, and I hadn't really noticed that with rowan. So I
mm,
love that to pull out then what people their experience in relationship is already, and to think on the well, it just is. It's a wee bit like when we do that, Tanya, this is what's magic, but so simply. So, you don't forget the difference between your Auntie Jean and your Auntie Susan is usually what I ramble on and they're like that. What's she talking about? Because they just are themselves, but you would never mistake them. And so when you start to develop that relationship with plants, and you can draw on other people's insights, and wow, you get the bitter there, I can get sweet, I didn't think of it that way, or I haven't looked, even as the teacher or the guide, when we start to people trust their own sense of things. um it's only at that level then that you're not going to forget. Do you get what I mean? You can't not
mm,
unsee it then. And so what's happened is, rather than taking on information to try and just regurgitate, as we kind of do with the way we test, for example, and with school currently, it's a kind of well, certainly my experience was that you're learning from a textbook and you're regurgitating. But when you're having that kind of and that could be making something from these plants and mushrooms, and messing it up too. Feel you'll not forget. You'll do it right the next time. You'll not forget. So what's my point? That kind of yeah, observing, but tuning into hearing what other people see, and then you can't not see it anymore. So
yeah.
then the invitation is, right, well, let's keep looking for rowan in the khaki army trousers as we're walking. And what else might we notice, with the serrated leaf edges? And okay, it's not in berry yet. So what else are we tuning into? Oh, there's the kind of fuzzy buds on there, right? Okay. So we start to do a kind of macro as well as micro cues. So
Mhm.
statually, rather, we look at trees from a big, big distance. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm thinking now, I hope I'm not rambling on too much. But now I'm thinking of like the difference between a sycamore and an oak tree from a distance. Right, you can just tell, like when you zoom in, you can see the
Yeah.
difference in the bark. The barks are obvious in the leaves and the da, the ID book stuff, sure.
Mhm.
But how does it look for a distance? Now, I invite you to look at this, particularly in winter. So when it's coming up now to winter, have a notice. You'll notice that the sycamore, to me anyway, looks more like have you ever seen a brain scan where you've got the lobes are all kind of branching, and it looks very dense, like a proper brain
Yeah.
scan. Like all those neurons or all the kind of networks are all, phew, it's way more dense and sort of a cauliflower like in sycamore than it is in oak, for example. So stuff like that from a distance, like that looks like a big brain stem there. And so thing that's macro before we zoom in and look at the bark of the sycamore, and it actually looks like these concentric circles, these rings on these scaly bits that kind of peel off when you get closer. So I'm kind of rambling, but that observation, remember,
Mm,
to observe is actually a process of, remember what we were saying about that I call it deep listening, that kind of a space of, well, what might these beings have to say first in the first instance before you've labeled them, before you've named. So there's that observation. How are you feeling as you're observing? It's a two-way process. It's not just you looking to
mm.
grab. Watch out, don't look to grab. Do you know?
And we're all unique as they're all unique. And in what you're saying is someone sensing sweetness where you had sensed bitterness, or the other way round. So the way our senses work is
Yeah,
also different. So we
yeah,
will have different sensory experiences in those relationships
exactly.
too, which um yeah, that just opens up a whole um I won't say catalogue of information, right?
Mm,
that
mm,
that we could, that if we are working that way with other people, and I'm also at the same time applying this to what this podcast is about, and that following spirit, but we all use our senses, we all use that sensory information in different ways, and it's
Yeah,
unique to us, even if the whether it's a tree or whether it's our spiritual guidance or whether it's a plant, it there's always going to be a uniqueness in our relationship
yeah,
with that. And I just
yeah.
love the way it kind of shifts across the realms, you know.
Lovely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you are on this journey into to that foraging and connecting people with nature and building those relationships across the, I would say, realms, because or across the species or non-human relationships.
Mm.
And yeah, I know you've had a lot of experience with I guess how that's unfolded in your life. What other stories have you got around following that knowing or following spirit, as I call it?
Um, yeah, I guess well, what pops in at the minute, sorry, my dog's staring at Otto, go and lie down. He's looking at me going, why are we not going out yet? Um, yeah, no, I'm thinking on when I decided when I was I turned 30 some time ago now, that I needed to just get away, and I wanted there was this beautiful boat. Well, first of all, I saw an advert that was like sailing round Mull, and I was like, wow, yes, please, with a group of strangers on this Bertha Marie, this old beautiful sailboat. And I thought that I need to do that, get the elements in my face and just blast. It was a kind of a maybe it was a whole Saturn return, you know, you're kind of returning 30. And round about
Uh-huh.
then you're kind of like, what the it's a kind of a what's going on? What am I doing? I guess I knew some excellent women at the time who had been doing some freelancing, what mostly is kind of forest school leadery people. And I was helping out here and there, learning some crafting and bits and bobs. And I was in a job that I'd loved as well, full time, and kind of nature conservation based. But I guess I was wondering, I knew there was this kind of it was before my business Herbal Homestead. It was kind of how that came about essentially. So um, I was basically sailing around Mull, and sure enough, I was getting all this spray in my face in the good Scottish weather blowing in, and yeah, we did a bit of a solo journey as well, camping over like, on a small part of the island yourself and facing yourself and what just came again, it's just I don't necessarily I kind of hear sometimes and maybe just get a knowingness with things as opposed to anything really visual or you know for me
Yeah.
and it was a herbal homestead. Now homestead's a bit of a kind of American term in a way,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, what does this mean? You know, sure, I have my concept and ideation around what that means, but what? So I was looking up home, you know, what and is anyone called that? And I thought, God, that summarises pretty well what I think I want to, you know, this could be the tool through which I do my work. This herbal, this could be my wee business, and so that took a good blast of the West Coast to have that, and I think we're going back to inspiration here. To be open and then to we can maybe I think we should talk more around that to the when you break up the word inspiration there's stuff hidden in there to be in spirit inspired
Mm.
in spirit you see, so when you're plugged in and open to that you're only then inspired by the muses if you like by the elemental beings um to hear more of just what is. I call it the truth, which sounds terrible because well, I don't know, because we are so unique, but there are just certain things that work here in certain ways, and the landscape, the living landscape, things just work in a certain way in different areas, and we need to tune into that truth, if I guess is what I
Yeah.
mean, without so that now I'm off on a tangent as I do when I start to get the buzz of the joys of lovely chats and conversations like this. But yeah, I'm thinking of that like spirit, but also the multiplicity and the expression of that. in the many
Mm.
forms, yet at the same time there's that uh, the spirit, the one in all of it, you know, that kind of,
Yes.
anyway, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I even answer your question there, Tanya? I think I might.
You're talking about how that sort of journey into how Herbal Homestead came into being,
Yeah,
and it was you were
yeah,
given a name.
yeah. The name came, that's right. And
Yeah.
then to follow on, and I think we briefly chatted about this. That's right. It was a Monday morning in my old job. Um, it was a great job, but again in nature conservation, working with volunteers, doing interesting things. But I knew there was this something else, and I didn't quite, if I'm honest, have the courage yet to go ta-da, Herbal Homestead full time. I was hoping to go part time, but I knew one thing because it just hit me like a brick, as we say. And my boss was in beside me that day, Monday morning. Went to work thinking that was fine. I would just be going to work. And then I left that day having handed in my notice. So I had this kind of epiphany in a way of like, quit your job. And I was like, okay. That's, I just knew it was the right thing to do. And then I was like, oh no, they're not going to let me go part time. So I had to go, more, oh, the security, where, oh, trust, just go with it. So that was a
Mm.
big push. Yeah, so that was another big thing, the epiphany of just hand in your notice a day, and so I did. And
Wow.
that made me just, right, well, you better get a move on with your other bits and bobs around your business then.
And so how
Yeah.
much notice did you give?
Well, I said that when it came to me, I said, Amanda, we need to chat. This was my boss at the time. And all right, sure, Lauren, she's probably thinking I'm going to ask about a tool or something we needed to order for a job or something. And it was I just handed in the notice. But I guess I would have had a period of like, I think it was at least 4, maybe it was 2 weeks, but I'm sure it was at least maybe 4. I can't mind now. But sure that there was still time for me to, with respect to them, exit, but not leaving them in the, yeah, short of staff. So it was a small
Mm.
transition though, all the same.
Yeah.
Or a big transition over a small time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so had you moved to where you're living now at the time?
Um, Oh no, so that's kind of connected to all of this. So what I realised, right? What I realised is yeah, it happened in threes, as they say, and it often does. So what happened first now? So I had that epiphany to change jobs, to quit that current one. So that was my work life, and then. And again, we'll chat another time, but then my actual life was in risk when I had this accident that I briefly mentioned. And sorry if it's annoying, and I'm not going to tell you what happened yet, but that's a whole other story
That's a
of.
big
So
story.
that's a big one, isn't it? So that was my actual life was at risk there, but that was very transformational. So it was my work life, my actual life, and this is in the space of about 4 or 5 months. And then when I was in hospital recovering, my house got flooded. So that was my home life. So my work, my life, and then my home. Three
Yeah.
boom 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 things, and then I thank goodness I just got out of the hospital before COVID kicked in. So I'm glad I wasn't stuck there. Um, but
Yeah.
it was I feel around that time, I don't know about you, I had lots of inspiration about land and what are my farmers doing. I was visiting my local farmers. I was like, this is terrible how little I know about what's going on round about me. And I couldn't, the abhorrence of, I think I wrote about it in my blog, about food poverty and what that really meant in the way we currently farm. And I was so, it's as if I had sort of I knew this, but I hadn't known this. I felt that with the plants as well about 10 years ago, but I can eat that. That's medicine. Like, how don't I know this? So there was another reassessment, a turn of the spiral of revisiting land around that time. And
Mm.
sure enough, those three things came to really, as I say, put me on my arse. Excuse the, I hope I can swear.
Yes, it's
the,
fine.
the, the
I
glove,
have done.
but in a good way. It's kind of like, knocks you for six, but it's that reassessment. And then yeah, there you it's a good test. There you have the courage to be yourself, and what might that mean and look like. Is often difficult, but it needs to be. I think that's my experience. You get perspective. The
Yes.
arrow can fly, right? The arrow can fly. The tension in the bow, the more it goes, the further it can fly, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a
Yeah.
bit like that, Tanya.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think because I also left work shortly before the pandemic.
Ah,
I'd given 3 months notice, so I'd handed my notice
well
in
done.
December, and I had all of these plans when I left work, and which largely it did involve the croftland.
Mm,
And though I spent time here, one thing that did happen is since I'd been here, I'd been looking for a well. I knew there was a second well, and I'd been looking for
lovely.
it. And it was during that time that I found it. And it was a red
Amazing.
well. I already had like the
Oh,
white well, but I found a red well, and it was like, whoa. And then
wow.
my life has sort of taken various turns since then, and I'm now back with the land. But
Amazing.
yeah, having sort of built up, I guess, all the resources, at least within myself,
Yeah,
for whatever happens next.
yeah,
So, one of the things you spoke about earlier was about piercing the green veil, and I love that expression. So,
yeah.
do you want to say more about that and how this ties in with this journey?
Yeah, sure. Um, so and I guess for me, even as a it's something again, it goes back to the about 10 years ago when I only started to really see plants, or at least so I realized that I hadn't actually been paying any attention. Maybe I wasn't very interested somehow. I was all about zoology, that was my background, but the plants weren't really doing it for me somehow. And I feel like, so I've been on that journey myself, and sure enough, I'm always learning all the time, of course, as we all are, but certainly it's as if this greenness is just, your grass, if you're lucky to have a garden, even if you go out and there's a bit of grass there, it's so varied when you zoom in and get a wee kind of a metre square
Mm.
there and you check out the different variety of species, you'll be very surprised. But oftentimes it's just seen as a greenness, and it's hard to distinguish the different structures and textures and colours and beings that might already exist there and be doing their thing there, and you never even noticed. And in fact, it's there's this intrinsic value that all these plants and ecosystems have on a small but also connected larger scale as well. So they're already doing a thing all the time, beautifully so, whether you're aware of it or not. So um, to sort of a slow down and tune into right what's actually going on here before you think you're going to do anything. So I guess that ties into maybe when I'm designing gardens or designing a certain thing, well, or learning about a plant, what's already going on there in situ. First of all, what might be, there's seasonal birds that come, swallows come and nest actually up near that bit there, or there's it's a kind of wetland area, so the pine martens. I don't know. I've just noticed that you need to take that time to realise, oh, this is what's going on before you think, oh, I'm going to come in and enhance that, even if you think you're doing a good job. You need to take that
Yeah.
time, what's going on first, what kind of events are happening, and yeah, for me it's that, first of all, just it's so simple, but it's that slowing down, Tanya, and then going,
Mm.
oh, and the more you can do this, so a good invitation is on your dog walk if you have a dog, or the next walk to the school run, or to the supermarket, or any wee green space you might traverse through. How is that changing? What's going on there? So, and to just take notice, and then it comes back to that observing again. So not looking to grab, Tanya. So
Yes.
softening the gaze, soften that gaze, not looking to
Yeah.
grab, before dear foragers, some novice ones, bless, it's again, I'm loving the positivity around people are so interested, but oftentimes it's like me looking at you just now, and if I was to look you up and down and go, right, well, that's a great top you've on there, I'm looking at you, what can I get? Right, that excellent long hair there, geez, what can I get from you? I'm looking at you, that
Yeah.
kind of we often do that externally with our plant beings and different things. Oh, what's that good? What you good for? Imagine me saying to you, right, what you good for? What can I get for you? It's a wee bit, it's very invasive and assumptive, and you've maybe missed and not heard its own story, first of all. So it's that simple, slowing down, breathing. I'm doing it now. I'm like, remind myself to breathe because I get excited. And I noticed that I don't know, I always remember my mum holding her belly in. And what I noticed, right, with this, see when you're all kind of, because you need to look good in that, right? You hold in your belly. And it's like, wait a wee minute here, my woman of curves. When I realised, when I relaxed that area, my tummy, and your kind of it's your lower sexual centres actually.
Yeah,
What I noticed was that I was then plugging in. I wasn't inhibiting my connection through my feet and through my my tummy and my gut and and then when I breathed like a baby with my tummy sticking out, you know, rather than this kind of constricted, shallow breathing, when I deeply breathed, it became much easier then to hear and that's what's going on, and to first of all notice the tension even that I held in myself. So, what we'll do, and even again, because I can still get all, as I say, that kind of excited way, will be to start with a wee sensory tea or a mystery tea tasting, and we can breathe and we can tune into those and trust those senses, because again, we're all different. What do you get? And only then we've kind of a plugged in. You've arrived, you've been busy, you were running late, you
yeah,
took a wrong turn to get here, so and so's running late, or you're that kind of in your headspace. So people need to arrive and land and route in before we can do any foraging usually. So for me, that's the start of this piercing the green veil, and just that human connection, like, oh, maybe a wee check-in, how's everybody doing? And that kind of everybody just opens up, and there's something vital in that we're missing in the everyday, that togetherness, even that kind of sharing and
yeah,
being in a circle, sharing, eating, gathering together. So that all of that ties in beautifully to this piercing the veil, this green veil especially, and I think you have a more authentic experience, and you're able to then trust more of your knowingness as part of the ecology. Let's not forget, we are of nature, we are of the body of the planet. We are bloody, don't get me, I hope I'm not on a tangent again, but the definition, Tanya, the bloody definition of nature, and I kind of paraphrase here, it says like all the flora and fauna, I think, and landscapes, and then it says, in the natural world, and then I quote, as opposed to humans and anything man-made. That's round about what the Oxford English Dictionary defines nature as. It's like, oh, that's a deep wound there. See that
yes,
nature outside. We define it so that it's outside ourselves. So
yeah,
to pierce the veil is to understand, or rather to feel and know yourself as part of the living world.
yeah,
To first
yes,
of all, before we're doing anything, to plug in, and then you might see and hear and know a thing. Oh, so it is. A thing. I
mm,
felt, and trust that. We don't trust anymore. We want a quick answer and a quick Google. We've all done it. You
yeah,
know, that kind of thing.
yeah, and that about that not being in isolation. I mean, we might feel
So
that we're
true.
in isolation, but we're not, right? Not
Exactly.
not when we explore that in a deep way. And
Yeah.
so our focus might be on one specific plant or mushroom or whatever, but it's being able to look at that whole system that's part of, that being is part of, and everything,
Yeah.
and really, really understanding that in a deep way.
Mm.
Yeah, you were saying earlier something about it's the knowing, through knowing something, then you can name it, right? It's
Yeah.
it's that that
Yeah.
that visceral experience
Yeah.
of knowing. And I find on my foraging courses, I have to, because I can see something, and even even though I really need glasses these days, I know,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though I haven't
Yeah.
even seen it properly, but I know because I've built up the relationship with with the
Yeah.
species, with the different beings, and it's that knowing. And I have to, refrain myself and allow people to have their own experience
Exactly.
around
Exactly.
that. It's
Exactly, because you can plant the seeds of what they're going to experience. This is it. So you need to do that annoying kind of cryptic thing of, right, well, here she goes, like this, what do you get? But it's sometimes very vital, because then you're going to plant that seed of here's what you were going to taste, and sure enough they'll get that taste, unless
Mm.
sometimes you're more encouraging them first of all to, well, what do you get? And oh, by the way, there's not a wrong answer. And talking about that knowingness, I'm laughing because I'm seeing myself sometimes, in the car, and you're like, oh, there's so and so in flower, or there's that tree. You end up seeing and your familiar beings, and it can be dangerous if you're driving. Focus on the road. Try not to get distracted by all the hedgerows and the blossomings or the fruitings or this or that. It's quite funny at times. But
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I've got a bit of
yeah,
a
God,
reputation for my driving because
God, yeah.
the
Ooh,
distractions.
ooh. Yeah,
What
but
I also love as well is, I'll be kind of sort of tuning in, and I'll be at home and I'll be thinking, oh, it'd be nice if I could find or say certain species, and of course if I go out looking for them I very often won't find them, and but they'll always pop up in an unexpected way,
yeah.
and I kind of love that. I mean, I guess I'm talking more about mushrooms, but it does happen with other plant
Yeah,
beings as well.
absolutely.
And it's that sense of almost like sending out a call. It's almost the reverse, of following spirit. Well, it is, because I'm saying, oh, I'd really love to connect with this plant being or whatever,
Mm.
and yet through following my intuition or following, it's like, oh, I think I'll go there today or I'll go here today, and then when I'm not expecting it, that request has been answered, and that being or that
Yeah.
plant or fungi will show themselves, and
Hmm.
I just love that when that happens.
That's really funny. I love that. It's nice to do that, to set an intention, but what happens is we can sometimes get in the way of that because we have expectations about what it should or look like. And in fact, that's taken me back to a lovely plant experience I had actually, Tanya. That's funny. Uh, it just comes in, so maybe I should share it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I was at the Scottish School of Herbal Medicine, so there's a lovely wee place on Arran, the Isle of Arran, with the good folks over there. And this was the first time I'd done or was it the first one of the first times where I took it really seriously anyway, of going on that kind of a the task was, the invitation was that you were to go and find your plant teacher or a plant teacher, and you would just know, right? You were to just go and walk wherever you were going to walk, and that was the aim. And so sure enough, I go off in a certain direction. It's the most gorgeous view, lovely gardens there. And and part of me sees, oh, this purple thistle, and you think, oh, purple, and you and I'm trying to say, shut up, Lauren, like just I was trying not to tailor my own journey, right? Because your thinking is going to tailor your experience if you can catch yourself, if you can see that you're doing that. So I was trying to be as open as I could, but at the same time listening as best I could. And how am I going to know what plant will be, who's going to talk to me? And that's so funny. I haven't thought about this in a while. And it was, could it be that? But no, it's not that plant. I thought, it's not that one. It's not this one. And so sure enough, I end up walking down thinking I'm just going to sit down and chill out because this is becoming a bit. I'm not really feeling it. I was almost giving up. And then I saw this bird on a fence post. And it kind of went like that, but how to say it, you can't really see my whole body, but I'm bringing my feet up to my head. And it was kind of almost as if it was looking under its shoes, as if I had sticky chewing gum stuck to its feet or something. I don't know how else to say. And it was doing this thing with its feet, and I thought, all right. And I had plonked my bum down, a bit fed up at this point. And I was like, that, all right, wee bird. And I thought, if you try to talk, and it's doing it again. And I even the third time was like, right, the answer's literally under my feet if you do that again. And sure enough, wee bird tells me, I can't remember what species it was now. Anyway, sure enough, it lifts its feet and it pecks it down at its feet. And it's so funny. I thought, okay, and what was I sitting amongst? Common sorrel, Rumex acetosa, this sorrel, right? And I thought, and I'd never seen sorrel like this in my life. I was literally sat my butt cheeks on it. But what I'd noticed, the kind of pointed arrow-like leaves, and what it sung to me at the time what it felt like at the time. I'd never seen sorrow like this. I saw the pink redness. It was almost coming into like flower as well. Those lovely discs and green and reds. And but what it was such an unsuspecting plant, but it's got that sharp notes, and it was pointing to the heavens. And Lauren at that time in my life was still like that kind of, that up there and away from myself. Like, oh, so it was like I saw it reminded me of this archer, of this fiery
Mm,
archer being, I don't know, and I could see the arrow in its leaf shape. And so we were later to draw this, and it was this really emotional, deep connection experience I'd had with this. That was my very, very first plant experience, actually, before the tree. So I've not thought about that, but it felt relevant to what you were saying on being open to the journey. And when you almost give up, or you were kind of, you were being pulled by the sexy purple flower over there. Oh, that'll be mine. That'll be my plant. You like to fancy yourself as, oh, that'll be that royal plant or whatever it is. That'll be mine. And it was like, nope, just sit in your bum. The truth will come. You know what I mean? So that I like what you were saying about that. It reminds me of that. So thanks for that. I haven't thought about that in some time.
yeah.
I was
Thank
greeting and everything.
you.
I was greeting afterwards. It was funny.
Thank you for sharing, Lauren. Whoa. So I think we've got even more we could be talking about. Have you any other stories that are sort of bubbling up to
Thanks.
share, or do you feel
Hmm. I'm not
complete?
sure how we are time wise. This is what happens in good company.
Oh,
It runs away, doesn't it?
yeah.
Which is an absolute joy. But I call it. It's kind of like real time, actually, isn't it? It's none of this. The day flies
Can,
by when you're in good company with the plant folk. It kind of runs away with you. So, and I think that's just how it is really until we bring our
there-
um,
there's one thing that I would like to bring in. So
sure, let's do that.
is one of the things I love about you, and I hope I'm getting this expression right, is the way you say is it just do Lauren? Is that, or is it just be Lauren?
I think that might, when we met one time, I think I talk about just isness with the plants. I think it's a bird term, like a birder's term, a kind of twitchy term. And if you describe, oh, how do you know that was a heron, for example? Well, it kind of just is. It looks a bit like a pterodactyl, but it just is. It's a heron. So I'd
Mm,
heard that phrase, just isness. And I'll say that about the plants, the just isness. It takes you beyond the ID book. It takes
yeah.
you to the khaki trousers place.
Yes.
And so, but I don't know if you're referring to in relation to spirit, or which would be relevant to this talk.
Which is within. So
So I
yeah.
guess what you make me think of anyway, and maybe it's important to say, God, don't do a tangent head now, Lauren. My doggies are so distracting, they're wee buggers. Um, yeah, so oh God, like that arrow of the sorrow. My thoughts flown away now, for goodness sake. Um, oh goodness, what was I going to say?
It's for me. It
Oh,
feels like it's just being true to self, right?
yes, it's
It's
come back.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Go on.
Oh, and it's dead simple. I kind of realised what I think you might have picked up on, and it was may we have the courage to be ourselves, and that's it. May we have the courage to be ourselves, and whatever that looks like in the moment.
Yeah.
And because that moves and grows and changes as well. So dare we have the courage, dare you
Yeah.
have the courage to be yourself, and therefore it's that kind of question. Well, what might that look like and be? Um, is where I go with that anyway. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I've covered what you remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. It also feels again, it's like, to be the sorrel because that's what's right for you in the moment rather than the mosh
Right.
thistle.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, that kind of
Yeah.
yeah, back to the earth, like simple but profound, right under your feet the whole time. Hello, yeah, and even connecting then the skies and the often overlooked nature of sorrow. You think, it's literally trodden on, and sure, it's an amazing plant, very tasty, but
Mm.
it was telling me so much then, and connecting Mrs. Heaven's Head with something right rooted. So that's funny now to reflect on that. Bringing that together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Oh, thank you.
I think we could talk. I know there's more stories, so
Oh, totally,
I sense
totally.
that we'll be talking again at some point
Sure, I hope
in the
so.
future of this podcast, as well as I think maybe some other
Yeah.
things we might be doing together.
Great. I hope so.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to all of those who are watching or listening, with much love from my heart to yours.
Thank you for the opportunity, Tanya. It's been a joy to see you, and yeah, see
It,
you soon.
it's my pleasure.
Take
Thank
care.
you.